All right, Sinister plotters, welcome back.
Ready to dive back into Metalstar.
You bet. I can't wait to see what Aaron Hill throws at us in Chapter 2.
Yeah, last week's chapter left us with quite a cliffhanger.
It did. Poor Sarah and John just thrust into this crazy new world.
I'm dying to know what happens next.
Me too,
And of course, we've got the Luminarium.
to shed some light.
I love that Hill gives us these little behind-the-scenes peeks.
Yeah, those extra insights really add another dimension to the whole story.
Makes you appreciate how much thought he puts into every detail.
Speaking of details, Sour Iker. What an intense title.
Oh yeah, definitely sets a certain mood, doesn't it?
Ah,
Makes you think of decay, corruption.
for sure.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin? Chapter 1 left us with a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And Chapter 2 just plunges us deeper into this
Oh yeah.
this crazy world. We've got new characters, terrifying creatures, and maybe some answers about what exactly went wrong with this planet. So let's start with John Darby,
Okay.
our new Marine who wakes up in this cloning facility.
Right.
And you immediately feel that panic
Oh yeah.
as John's senses start to come back online.
Right.
But they're distorted. They're terrifying. He'll really put you right there
You really feel it.
in his shoes,
Yeah.
blind and scrambling in this sterile, creepy facility.
It's claustrophobic too, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're trapped right there with him.
It's brilliant. I mean, what a powerful way to introduce
Yeah.
a new character, right?
Totally.
Instead of just telling us about John's past,
Right.
we experience this disorientation right alongside him.
Absolutely.
And then there's that nickname Wachichu, which means white man.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it hints at this deep struggle with identity,
Oh yeah, for sure.
caught between these two worlds. It makes you wonder how that's going to play out.
It's like he's got this internal conflict from the very beginning.
Yeah. But you got to love how John just snaps into survival mode.
Oh yeah, total Marine through and through. Improvise, adapt, overcome, right?
Right. It's like that motto is practically burned into his brain.
It's gotta be. And honestly, those words are gonna be key for him going forward.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's like we're seeing the foundation of his whole character arc right there. Hill really lays on the sensory details too. Like John's gasping for air, everything sounds distorted.
And there's this weird fluid on the floor. Like, what even is that?
Right. It's super creepy.
You really feel how vulnerable John is, even though he's this tough soldier.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then he runs into Roger, the robotic engineer.
Mhm.
But Roger's acting really weird this time. He just says, "Don't worry, your sight will return." And then he vanishes.
That's so strange.
What happened to the friendly, helpful Roger from Chapter 1?
Maybe something happened to him between chapters. Or maybe his programming got messed up somehow.
That's a good point. Okay, so while John is trying to figure out if he'll ever see again, we cut back to Jake.
Oh, right, Jake.
Poe and his crew captured him, remember? Now they're dragging him across this wasteland towards their bunker.
Okay, so what's the vibe with Poe's crew?
Ah, yes. Renza, Dade, Poe, and Oso. And Jake's, our mysterious swordsman, makes a bold move
Oh, yeah.
by sticking with Poe's group.
Big decision.
I wouldn't trust anyone in that wasteland.
Me neither, honestly.
But hey, maybe Jake knows what he's doing.
Yeah, maybe.
What do you think?
Well, Dade certainly doesn't trust him. The tension between them is so thick you could cut it with a knife.
Oh, absolutely. You can tell Dade thinks he's a spy.
You're right. You really feel that sense of mistrust, that constant danger in this world. Hill really nails that feeling.
Yeah, he does. You don't know who to trust.
Exactly. Where even a simple gesture can seem threatening.
And it's so interesting because amidst all this darkness and tension, we get a little comic relief with Rensa.
Oh, Renza. I love her.
Always ready with a witty remark, never misses a beat.
She's definitely the comic relief in this pretty grim setting.
Well, the Luminarium describes her as this. Oh, hold on, let me find the exact quote.
For sure.
Okay, here it is. Rensa is a product of the demimonde, a survivor who trusts no one and relies on her wits and her crowbar to stay alive.
Whoa, a crowbar.
Yeah, don't mess with Rensa.
So she's not exactly welcoming Jake with open arms.
Not exactly.
Oh.
But the dynamic between her and Dade is kind of funny. Another member of Poe's crew.
Yeah.
They're always bickering, but it's like
Like a dark comedy duo.
exactly. Like at one point, Dade says something about floating on thin ice. And Rensa's like, "You mean skating, numbskull?" I laughed out loud. I mean, come on.
It's classic Renza. She
Yeah.
brings this much-needed humor to the story.
It's funny, but it also tells you a lot about them. Even in this crazy world, they still find ways to joke around.
It's A nice touch by Hill that makes the characters feel more real.
Totally. She's great.
But don't underestimate her, though.
Oh, absolutely not.
She's resourceful, she's capable, she's a survivor.
He's a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got John dealing with his returning site, Sarah trapped, and Jake. Well, who knows what he's really up to. But before we move on, there's something else we need to talk about. John stumbles into this garden.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm telling you, these are not your grandma's petunias.
Definitely not. These are something else entirely.
I think else entirely.
Sentient plants, moving, aware of their surroundings.
Aaron Hill's descriptions are so vivid, so detailed.
You can practically feel the vines twisting around you, you know?
It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
Exactly. Like, nature has turned against us, and it's stunningly beautiful.
It gave me chills.
It's a classic science fiction theme, but Hill makes it feel so real, so urgent.
Oh, yeah, he does. It's not just a story. It's a warning.
Yeah, I think so too.
And a really thought-provoking one at that. All right, we're just getting started with our deep dive into Sour Ichor. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a flash to continue the discussion.
Sounds good. Can't wait. Okay, so we left off with John and those sentient plants.
Oh, those plants.
Right. So creepy. But remember, John's also on a mission, right? He's heading toward what he thinks is a city.
Uh-huh.
But as he gets closer, he realizes it's not a city at all.
It's a ruin.
Yeah, a bombed-out ruin, and there are these figures moving in the distance.
It's so creepy the way Hill describes them. Like, John sees them tossing vehicles aside.
I know.
Like they're nothing. It's clear that these beings are incredibly strong.
Superhuman strength, for sure. And you know what's interesting?
Right.
The Luminarium mentions that these are the beings Dade warned Poe about.
Oh, right. Back in chapter 1.
Exactly. The ones who are rumored to be incredibly dangerous, like avoid at all costs kind of dangerous.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Totally forgot about Dade's warning.
Yeah.
This is why we need the Luminarium.
Right. It's like a cheat sheet for the book.
It connects all the dots.
Yeah.
So is John walking straight into danger?
It seems that way. Remember, John's senses are heightened.
Oh, yeah, he's still recovering.
Right, from the blindness.
Yeah.
And he's relying on instinct.
Uh-huh.
He sees these figures as potential hostiles, and the way they move, so deliberate, methodical.
Oh, so unsettling.
It makes them even more intimidating.
It's like pure nightmare fuel. Red sky, bombed out city, these powerful figures lurking in the shadows. Aaron Hill knows how to create atmosphere.
He's a master of suspense, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. But before we get too caught up in the wasteland, let's jump back to the cloning facility for a sec.
Okay, good point.
While John's facing these potential threats, we learn more about his background through the Luminarium.
Oh, yeah.
It's fascinating. You know how Hill contrasts John's Marine training with his Native American heritage?
It's a really cool juxtaposition, right?
It's like he's got this disciplined, adapt, and overcome mentality from the Marines.
Right.
But also this deep connection to nature from his heritage.
It's like those two sides are constantly at war within him.
Exactly. The warrior and the shaman.
Yeah.
And, the Luminarium mentions that his mother was a medicine woman.
Interesting.
Do you think those skills will come in handy later?
Oh, for sure. I mean, modern medicine is probably not an option in this world, so any knowledge of traditional healing arts could be crucial for survival.
Makes sense. What else does the Luminarium say?
Well, it suggests that John has knowledge of healing arts, tracking, things that would be essential in this kind of environment. Combine that with his Marine training, and you've got a character who can handle himself in a fight and potentially heal others.
That's a rare combination.
It is. He's like the ultimate survivor.
Talk about a valuable asset in a post-apocalyptic world.
Right.
Okay, so we've got John potentially facing some serious danger.
Yep.
Sarah's still trapped. And Jake. Well, Jake's still a mystery.
He is. But you know what else is a mystery? The bigger picture, right? What exactly happened to this world?
You're talking about the Proto-Gaia project, the one Sarah's grandfather was involved in.
That's the one. From what we've gathered, it was supposed to be this huge plan to protect humanity from some massive catastrophe, like preserve life until the Earth could recover.
It sounds like a noble goal.
It does.
Right. So what's the deal with this project? Why are they creating all these clones?
Well, the Luminarium gives us a little more insight into Dr. Lemke, Sarah's grandfather.
Yeah, the guy who's behind this whole thing. What does it say?
Well, it says he was obsessed with this idea of creating a new legacy for humanity. And he was a big believer in the power of biomagnetics and gene therapy.
Wait, biomagnet?
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's like using magnets to influence your body.
Like magnets for healing.
Exactly.
I've heard of that.
Combine that with the gene therapy, which is basically rewriting someone's DNA. And you have the potential to do some pretty wild things.
Like create an army of clones.
Maybe. Or maybe something even more ambitious.
Okay, so Dr. Lemke sounds like a brilliant, but maybe slightly mad scientist.
Definitely a bit eccentric.
Anything else interesting about him in the Luminarium?
Well, there's this little story about how he used to tease Sarah about the cello being a man's instrument.
Haha, really?
Yeah, it shows he had a sense of humor, even if it was a little dry.
And speaking of memories, Sarah has this really vivid flashback to a conversation between her grandfather and this guy, Arthur Dent.
Arthur Dent? Like from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Well, no. This Arthur Dent was a young scientist who was fascinated by Dr. Lemke's work.
Interesting.
Why do you think this specific memory popped up for Sarah?
It could be random. Just a fragment from her donor's life.
Ooh, that's a good theory.
Remember, in Chapter 1, Roger mentioned the others who were involved. Could Arthur Dent be one of them?
It's like Hill is dropping these little clues.
And we have to follow them to see where they lead.
I love a good mystery. Okay, so Sarah is wrestling with her memories.
But clearly something went terribly wrong.
Yeah, those sentient plants, the cloning facility, the fact that John was brought back to life, it all points back to this project.
It's like this giant science experiment gone wrong.
And now everyone's paying the price.
Exactly. It makes you think, about the consequences of our actions.
The hubris of humanity.
And sometimes those good intentions have
Yeah.
devastating consequences.
Oh, absolutely. So, what do you think? Did Dr. Lemke and his team underestimate the power of nature? Or was this outcome something they actually foresaw?
That's a good question. The Luminarium hints that they knew there were risks.
But they went ahead anyway.
It seems that way. I guess they thought the potential benefits outweighed the risks.
It's a gamble that didn't pay off.
Not at all. And now it's up to the survivors to deal with the fallout.
And that's what makes Metalstar so compelling, right? It's not just about the action and the suspense. It's a story that makes you think about the choices we make.
And the consequences those choices have.
Exactly. Both for ourselves and for the world around us.
Yeah. It's a story that stays with you long after you finish reading it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And with each chapter, the stakes just keep getting higher.
You can really feel the tension building.
I'm on the edge of my seat wondering what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
What are your predictions?
All right, so you've heard about John, you've heard about Sarah.
And those sentient plants.
Oh, yeah, don't forget about those. But, as we wrap up Chapter 2, there are these bigger themes that we really need to talk about.
Definitely.
Like it's not just about the action and the suspense, it's about memory, identity, and what happens when humanity tries to control nature.
Exactly. So let's start with memory.
Okay.
Both John and Sarah are struggling with these gaps in their memory. And the Metalstar Luminarium, it just sheds light on how messed up memory can be in this world.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And that's what Aaron Hill seems to be getting at, right?
I think so.
Like John's wrestling with his dual heritage. Sarah, she's clinging to these fragmented memories of her past life.
Right.
And Jake, well, Jake is a total enigma.
Oh, Jake Lee, yeah, he's a mystery wrapped in a riddle.
He is. But it's like each character, they're all searching for their identity.
In a world where nothing is certain.
Exactly. And you can't even trust your own memories. All right, Sinister Plotters, that's it for our deep dive into Chapter 2 of Metalstar. Make sure you head over to www.metalstar.us for more info and let us know your theories about those sentient plants. Hit us up on social media using hashtag #MetalstarDeepDive. And of course, we'll be back next week for our deep dive into Chapter 3.
We love hearing from you guys.
We do. And hey, we might even feature some of your ideas in the next episode.
So make sure to share them with us.
All right, until then, happy reading.